It's called the Protection of Women and Girls Sports Act, where basically, well, not basically, you're saying gender based solely on a person's reproductive biology and genetics at birth. And if you don't adhere to that, you're going to cut funding to schools. That seems like the smartest bill, yet the dumbest bill. It's dumb because you got to do it, right?
Yeah. It's just a shame what's happened up here over the last 4 years. It's been an attack on gender. It's been really an attack on women, all women, because they don't like women. They like, everybody to think when they're born that you're not a woman, you're actually a man in women's clothing. And so when I first got here, my first bill I put on the floor that I actually got a vote on was the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. In other words, keep men out of women's sports. It's unsafe and it's not fair. And people are going to be denied opportunities, especially young girls coming up.
I rise because this bill threatens the principles that make our schools and sports fields places of opportunity. This bill does not protect anyone. It unjustly targets transgender women and girls under the guise of fairness. But exclusion is not fairness, Mr. Speaker. Fairness is ensuring that every athlete can participate, grow, and thrive.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So we have some great news, the news that we have been waiting for the longest time. The Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act has passed. It was passed at the House yesterday after various testimonies, various deliberations, some more interesting than others, some more bizarre than others, and some more factual than others. This is a huge victory for female athletes who have really been put through it over the last few years. Last year, in particular, was pretty brutal for many female athletes. And with just a few days away from President-elect Trump taking office, I'm sure we can see that these sort of things will become a thing of the past. These insane battles that women and girls have had to endure will soon become a thing of the past, where everybody will be forced to compete in the correct category. Now, don't let anybody tell you that the Republicans have banned trans people from competing in sports, barred them from participating. That is simply not true. This was a bill to simply protect women's sports and ensure that women's sports are for women only, for females only. Now, unfortunately, Democrats are still struggling to define what a woman is.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for yeas and nays in final passage.
The yeas and nays are ordered. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. Sufficient number having risen. The yeas are ordered. Members record their vote by electronic device.
So the bill passed 218 to 206, and even 2 Democrats voted in favor of the bill. So we had Henry Cuellar and Vicente Gonzalez, both of Texas. And of course, the Republicans were celebrating last night after such an important victory. And this is a victory for anyone who wants fairness in sports for women and girls, regardless of your political affiliations.
But today, the House voted to uphold common sense again. We voted to require all schools receiving federal funds to uphold the original meaning of Title IX and keep biological men out of women's sports. Last Congress, we voted on this legislation as well. We will note that not one single Democrat joined us. Today was an improvement. It's bipartisan. We had 2 Democrats join us. Yes. But it's shameful. There should have been many, many more. In fact, I would argue that every member of this body should have voted for common sense and to protect women. And for some reason, for politics, I guess, they chose not to. The American people sent a clear message in November. They want us to return to common sense. But it appears that some of our friends in the other party are ignoring that plea. This Congress, we have the power of a Republican Senate, and we will have Donald J. Trump return to the White House in less than a week. That is going to be a sea change around here, and we can't wait.
And remember the Democrats who spoke up for women's sports, despite the backlash, talking about how they're concerned about their daughters competing against boys.
And immediately after the election, Congressman Seth Moulton told the New York Times that, quote, Democrats spend way too much time trying not to offend anyone rather than being brutally honest about the challenges many Americans face. I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. And then last weekend, Congressman Moulton came on this network to discuss those comments.
I was just speaking authentically as a dad about one of many issues where I think we're just out of touch with the majority of voters. And I stand by my position. You know, maybe I didn't get all the words exactly right. But the point is that the backlash I've received proves my point that we can't even have these discussions as a party.
Well, it turns out that that may have just been all talk because they voted against the bill. Tom Ciozi and Seth Moulton, both of them voted against it. So when it came down to it, cowardice, I guess, won in the end. Speaker Mike Johnson, he said, everyone's talking about their children today. I've got 2 sons and 2 daughters, and we see the difference. Of course, everyone does. And it's kind of silly to deny it. The American people sent a clear message in November. They want us to return to common sense. And we're going to see if Democrats have heard that message. And it appears that Democrats haven't learned anything from the recent election results, from the landslide victory, where it was made clear that the overwhelming majority of people in this country do not want girls competing against boys in sports, do not want males entering into the women's locker rooms. So in a desperate attempt to essentially defend the indefensible, Democrats pulled out everything to try and discredit this bill. We had some ridiculous assertions, some ridiculous claims that allowing men to compete in women's sports was somehow good for the protection of women, was somehow important to protect women from abuse, from potential predators. This is the sort of thing that they were pulling. This is the sort of mental gymnastics that they were subjecting everybody to. So AOC spoke out against the bill in a 2-minute tirade that included both false and unsubstantiated claims. Her speech ended with an unexplained claim that CEOs love this bill as it relates to the ongoing California wildfires. She made the same ridiculous claim that she made when it came to the bathroom bills that Nancy Mace was pushing through to ensure that men do not walk into women's bathrooms in the Capitol and in other federal buildings, claiming that enforcing this rule is going to require women to have their private parts inspected in order to enter into the women's bathroom, in order to prove that they are female. And then she brought up the only topic that Democrats seem to care about when talking about women's rights.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Madam Ranking Member. Here we are today, Republicans who have voted consistently against the Violence Against Women Act, who have taken away the right of all women to choose and have control over their own body, who, as women are bleeding out in parking lots across the country, standing there, allowing us to die, now want to pretend today that they care about women. And why? To open up gender and, yes, genital examinations into little girls in this country in the so-called name of attacking trans girls. And to that, today, what we have to say are 2 words: not today. The majority right now says there's no place in this bill that says it opens up for genital examinations. Well, here's the thing. There's no enforcement mechanism in this bill. And when there is no enforcement mechanism, you open the door to every enforcement mechanism. Trans girls are girls. And for all the folks that are so concerned, thank you for your concern about women for the first time that I've seen. I don't know about y'all, I don't know who's been to gym class lately, but girls, even if you only believe in 2 genders, I've played co-ed sports all the time. But what this also opens the door for is for women to try to perform a very specific kind of femininity for the very kind of men who are drafting this bill, and to open up questioning of who is a woman because of how we look, how we present ourselves, and yes, what we choose to do with our bodies. I know who loves this bill. Yes, bigoted folks love this bill. Assaulters love this bill. But also, CEOs love this bill. Because Los Angeles is on fire right now. And this is the number one priority this majority has. Thank you, and I yield back.
Absolutely wild that she would stand there with a straight face and come out with all those points, desperately trying to hold on to their labels as, feminists, to people who champion for women. But over the last few years, they have completely discredited themselves. This is the party that doesn't even know how to define what a woman is. This is a party who is perfectly happy with girls having to share locker rooms with boys, with men, and gaslight and dismiss the concerns that women have about their safety. They call those concerns bigotry. They say those concerns are unsubstantiated. They have been instrumental in erasing women by introducing gender identity, meaning anybody can claim to be a woman, even if they are male. And then she brought up the wildfires, as if this is a concern that just came about the other day. This very same bill was voted on in 2003, and Democrats rejected it. Not one Democrat voted for this. Women have been voicing these concerns. Women have been fighting for fairness in sports for years now. So disingenuous and embarrassing, quite frankly. She will call herself a feminist while pushing for men to dominate women's sports. Trans girls are girls, that's all she has to say. And then she talks about how wonderful co-ed sports are, which again directly shows that she is willing to do away with women's sports altogether. These trans activists have made clear that they are perfectly happy for categories to be a thing of the past, and for women to not have sports of our own, sports that is just for women. They will sooner have women erased to accommodate these men. And Nancy Mace said, actually, AOC, real feminists love this bill. AOC goes on a rant against a bill banning males from competing in girl sports and claims women are bleeding out in parking lots across the country. What? Why does AOC want boys to beat up girls? AOC tries to defend men in girls' bathroom by bizarrely talking about girls having their genitals examined. She then lies and says men can be girls and that she plays co-ed sports. Is there any video of AOC playing a sport ever? She certainly could benefit from it. AOC goes on a completely unhinged rant where she calls anybody who wants only biological women to be allowed to play in women's sports a bigot. She starts off with lies about women bleeding out in parking lots.
I'm thrilled with the passage of H.R. 28, the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, but truthfully, I'm mad. I'm mad that this is something we have to do. I'm mad that we as women have to beg for equal rights. I'm mad that we have to beg for privacy in areas of undressing, and I'm mad that we have to beg for safety on the court or on the field, or walking in the streets at night for that matter. Here's some of the things, let's just go through a couple of the things we heard on the House floor today from Democrats. We heard of things like genital exams. We heard that girls will be asked to show what's in their underwear. We heard that they have to show internal and external anatomy, inspections, Taliban-like enforcers, hire predators to peek at girls, on and on and on. Weird fear-mongering about predators. But that's what Democrats do best. If you don't know what they're up to, just look at what they're accusing the right of. There have only been a few girls. Another thing they said, there's only a few girls who have been injured at the hands of a boy. It's such a small percentage. I heard that this bill is a waste of time. And let me tell you the message I received when I heard that, is that I'm a waste of time. Girls around the country, just like me, are a waste of time. Your daughters are a waste of time to all House Democrats except the two who voted in favor of the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. But to Speaker Johnson's point, the American people spoke on November 5th.
We had Hakeem Jeffries saying the following: the House Republican Child Predator Empowerment Act does not promote fairness and safety in sports. It will unleash horrific child predators on girls and young women throughout America. Unacceptable. Riley Gaines' response was, Hakeem Jeffries says keeping men out of women's sports will unleash horrific child predators on girls. No, that's what not having this bill has done. This is really who Dems propped up as their hopeful Speaker of the House. I don't know how anybody takes these people seriously for 1 second. They're an absolute disgrace. Hakeem, aka Dollar Tree Obama, is probably one of the dumbest Democrats, Congress member, right up there with AOC. I bet he can't explain how that's going to happen. That makes no sense.
I voted no on this bill, and I want to tell you why. Instead of focusing on lowering costs and raising wages for the American people, the things that Republicans said that they were going to do, their first bill that they brought to the floor this week was a bill to categorically ban transgender girls from school sports. Now, I want to be clear. Americans do have real concerns about fairness, and it's important that we have those conversations in a way that seeks to educate Americans about the facts, including what the data shows, how small this population is, and other key factors. But I also want to be very clear that categorical bans like this one harm all girls and are invasive and impossible to implement. How do you verify a girl's, quote, reproductive biology? If a young girl, if your daughter does not look feminine enough, does that mean she's subject to examination now? In states that have passed these misguided bans, we have seen horrible reports of girls facing harassment, threats, and even secret investigations to uncover their, quote, real gender. Last year, NCAA president and former Republican governor Charlie Baker said that out of 500,000 NCAA athletes, he was aware of less than 10 that were trans.
The fact that it's a few actually shows how ridiculous this administration has been, how ridiculous this party is, that they would turn everything upside down, introduce legislation, erase women, or to appease a few. And it's because of the changes in legislation, it's because of the changes in policies that have opened up women's spaces to men, that have opened up women's sports to male athletes. And as a result, women have been assaulted, women have been injured, they've been put in unfair and unsafe environments across the country, all to accommodate a few.
This obsession with monitoring kids' genitals is absolutely the problem. Yes, genital examinations into little girls in this country.
That empowers pedophiles and predators.
The girl athletes who could be subject to genital inspections.
All girls at risk of intrusive questions and physical genital examinations.
We do not need Taliban-like enforcers in our schools.
Does this mean hiring potential predators to peek at the private parts of kids in locker rooms? Now that sounds like an actual problem to me.
Have these idiots ever heard of a cheek swab? They are an embarrassment and they are showing what they are obsessed with. Riley Gaines said, if you ever want to know what Democrats are up to, just look at what they're accusing the right of. These people have lost the plot entirely. As Riley said, the fact that we even need to fight to introduce these sort of bills is absurd in a civilized society and the leader of the free world. And as we know, when we have policies that account for gender identity rather than biological sex, it allows any man to walk into a woman's locker room, a woman's dormitory, a woman's sorority. It opens the door to any man and thus potential predators. And they know this. But it's the people who want to protect women and girls who are the predators, apparently. And lastly, to end on a more trivial note, we had the clash of Nancy Mace and Jasmine Crocket. Some people say it was embarrassing, the whole exchange was embarrassing. Some people say that Jasmine owned Nancy and Nancy owned Jasmine. I don't know. All I know is the whole thing was a little over the top.
So she gonna keep saying trans so that people will feel threatened. And child, listen, I want y'all
I
to
am
tell
no
me
child.
whether or
Do
not
not call me a child. I am no child.
I want
Don't
to
even
find
start.
out
I am a grown
which
woman.
of those
I'm 47 years
emails
old. I have broken
actually
more
have.
glass ceilings than you
Chairman,
ever
I
will
am
in my
reclaiming my
life.
time.
You will not do that. I
Order.
am not a
Chairman,
child.
I am
not a
reclaiming
child.
my time.
If you want to take it outside,
Mr. Chairman, the committee is not in order.
Order.
Point of order. Point of order.
Order.
So Nancy said, if you want to take it outside, we can take it outside. That escalated because Jasmine said, I'm not even going to try and do the impression. So she said, child, listen. And yeah, it escalated. Now, I don't think she was calling Nancy a child. I think it was just an expression. We know the expression. And I think that's how she talks. That's what she was saying. I don't think she was like, listen here, little girl. I don't think it was that sort of sentiment. So, if it was, I'd understand. But that's how Nancy interpreted it. And I think that was probably a misunderstanding. And yeah, you could say Nancy overreacted a little bit with this whole take it outside. But at the same time, in Congress, I probably wouldn't be so casual in how I was speaking. That's just me. Nancy said, I am no child. I've broken more glass ceilings than this woman could ever imagine. She's out of her league and not cut out for this. Oh, this is what she pinned to her profile, actually, addressing Jasmine. She said, I will not be belittled. I will not back down. I will hold the line. I don't care how offended Jasmine Crocket is by my words. Jasmine Crocket must be auditioning for a spot on The View. She's an attention-seeking loser who clearly has some fundraising goals to hit. And to be clear, that is the only thing that she will hit. Republicans incite violence from the highest levels of government and also claim to be the party of law and order. The two cannot be true. Do yourself a favor, decide to require better of your electeds. Last I checked, threatening members in a committee room doesn't exactly reduce the cost of eggs. Oh dear. So yeah, maybe that was a little bit of a distraction, but thankfully the bill has passed. So finally, if it becomes law, the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act will essentially ban transgender athletes from participating in sports competitions or their gender identity at schools that receive federal funding. The bill faces an unclear path in the Senate, where Republicans would need 7 Democratic defectors to get to the 60 votes needed to pass. So that would certainly present itself as a hurdle for the Republicans, needing 7 Democratic defectors. However, with the impending arrival of Donald Trump in the White House, he has said that he will write executive orders that outright bans transgender athletes from competing in women's categories. You can say he's taking their rights away and all this business, but no. What he's doing is protecting the rights of women and protecting sex-based rights. Rights that pertain to biological sex as opposed to gender identity. So either way, I think it is looking good for women and girls, looking good for women's sports and women's spaces. So I'm hoping come day one, we will see protections reinstated, not just for women's sports, but for women's spaces too. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves and God willing, I will see you in the next video.